Admiral Zextar's 6 eyes focused on the holographic display floating above the command deck of the Galactic Dominion flagship × Eternal Conquest *. The blue-scaled Vorthak commander had spent the last 3 cycles studying the tactical reports from the Outer Rim territories. Something was very wrong. "Commander Thys," he called to his tactical officer. "Show me the human engagement records again." The insectoid Thys clicked her mandibles nervously as she manipulated the controls. 3-dimensional battle scenes materialized in the air, showing recent skirmishes between human forces and various Dominion patrol fleets. Each engagement told the same impossible story. "Sir, the humans continue to achieve victory ratios that should not be mathematically possible," Thys reported. "In every encounter, they deploy forces roughly 1/10 the size of our patrol groups. Yet they achieve complete tactical superiority within minutes." Zextar's throat sacs inflated with frustration. The Galactic Dominion had ruled over 700 worlds for 2,000 years. They had conquered species with superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and even those with strange psychic abilities. Yet these hairless primates from a backwater planet called Earth continued to embarrass his forces. "Perhaps their ships are more advanced than our intelligence suggests," offered Subcommander Krill, a tall, gray-skinned humanoid from the Zentari worlds. "Our scouts reported crude chemical propulsion and basic energy weapons." "That was the initial assessment," Zextar agreed, his voice rumbling through the bridge's translation systems. "But watch this engagement near the Proxima mining station." The hologram shifted to show a recent battle. A single human vessel, barely 200 meters long, faced off against a Dominion patrol consisting of 3 heavy cruisers and their escort fighters. According to standard Dominion doctrine, the human ship should have been vaporized within seconds. Instead, the human vessel moved with impossible precision. It seemed to predict exactly where the Dominion ships would fire their plasma cannons, dancing between energy beams that should have been unavoidable. The human ship's weapons fired in perfect synchronization, targeting the exact weak points in Dominion armor that even experienced Dominion crews struggled to hit consistently. Within 4 minutes, all 3 Dominion cruisers were drifting hulks, their crews either dead or unconscious from catastrophic system failures. The human ship hadn't taken a single hit. "How do they do this?" Thys whispered, her compound eyes reflecting the light from the hologram. "Our ships are larger. Our weapons more powerful. Our crews trained for decades in combat tactics." Zextar had been asking himself the same question for weeks. The humans had only made contact with galactic civilization 18 months ago. Their planet had been classified as a primitive world, suitable for eventual annexation once they developed basic space travel. The Dominion's standard protocol was to wait until new species reached their own solar system's edge, then offer them a choice: join the Dominion peacefully or be conquered. The humans had chosen conquest. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Vex from across the bridge, "we're receiving a transmission from Fleet Admiral Korath's task force near the Sol system." Zextar's attention snapped to the communications station. Korath commanded the Dominion's 3rd Fleet, one of their most experienced combat formations. They had been sent to demonstrate proper Dominion superiority by eliminating human resistance in their home system. "Put it through," Zextar ordered. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Korath's scarred face. The veteran Thraxian commander looked shaken, his usually steady voice carrying an undertone of disbelief. "Admiral Zextar, I must report a development that defies explanation. My task force has engaged the main human fleet near their homeworld." "Excellent," Zextar replied. "I assume you've crushed their primitive resistance." Korath's forearms gestured helplessly. "Sir, we encountered what appeared to be their primary battle fleet, approximately 50 vessels of various sizes, the largest, no more than 600 meters in length. Standard doctrine suggested we could destroy them with a single squadron. And," Zextar prompted, though something in Korath's expression made his stomach clench, "we committed 2 full battle groups, nearly 400 ships. The engagement lasted 17 minutes. Korath paused, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Sir, we lost 93 ships. The humans lost none." Silence fell across the bridge of the Time's Eternal Conquest *. Thys dropped her datapad with a clatter that seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. That's impossible, Sub-Commander Krill breathed. 400 ships against 50 primitives? The humans fought like they could read our tactical computers, Korath continued. Every maneuver we attempted, they had already positioned themselves to counter. Their weapons penetrated our shields as if they weren't there. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Zextar felt his world tilting. The Galactic Dominion had built its empire on the principle of overwhelming force. They possessed the largest fleets, the most advanced weapons, the most experienced crews. How could a species that hadn't even developed faster than light travel 18 months ago be defeating them? What are your current orders, sir? Korath asked. Before Zextar could respond, another communication signal arrived. This one came from the frontier sector, where Commander Voss had been leading raids against human supply lines. Admiral, Voss's voice crackled through the speakers. I need to report something urgent. We've captured a human supply convoy, but the intelligence we've gathered is disturbing. Explain, Zextar demanded. Sir, according to the data we recovered, the fleets we've been fighting represent less than 10% of total human military capability. The bridge fell silent again. Zextar felt his throat sacs contract involuntarily. Repeat that, Commander. The humans have been fighting us with what they classify as patrol squadrons and training fleets. Their main battle fleets haven't left their home system, sir. If their preliminary forces are achieving these victory ratios, what happens when they deploy their actual military? Zextar's 6 eyes stared at the tactical displays surrounding him. Every engagement marker showed the same pattern. Small human forces destroying larger Dominion fleets with minimal losses. If these weren't even their main military units. Sir, Thys said quietly, there's something else. I've been analyzing the sensor data from our encounters. The human ships we've been fighting all carry identical energy signatures in their power cores. Meaning? They're not unique vessels, sir. They appear to be mass-produced from standardized designs. If they're deploying identical ships across hundreds of light-years of front line, their manufacturing capability must be enormous. The implications hit Zextar like a physical blow. The Dominion had assumed they were fighting scattered human colonies with whatever ships they could cobble together. Instead, they were apparently facing a coordinated military force with industrial capabilities that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Commander Voss, he called. What else did you learn from the captured supply convoy? The convoy was carrying what the humans call standard rations for their patrol crews. Sir, the food supplies were enough to feed a crew of 40 for 6 months. The convoy had enough supplies for 8,000 such crews. 8,000 crews, Krill repeated numbly. That would supply 200 ships for patrol duty alone. And sir, Voss continued, the supply requisitions referenced 17 different fleet staging areas that we haven't even located yet. Zextar closed all 6 eyes and tried to process what he was learning. The humans weren't just more tactically capable than expected. They appeared to possess military resources that made the Dominion look like raiders playing with toys. What are our intelligence estimates on total human population? He asked. Thys consulted her datapad. Initial surveys suggested approximately 8 billion individuals on their homeworld, with small colonies on perhaps a dozen worlds. Commander Voss, what does the captured data suggest? Sir, the logistics manifests reference supply requirements for sectors 12 through 47. If each sector represents similar population and resource levels, the calculation hung unspoken in the air. If humans had 47 sectors of development, each comparable to their homeworld, they weren't looking at 8 billion humans, they were looking at several hundred billion. Sir, the communications officer interrupted again. We're receiving an emergency transmission from the 5th Fleet near the Rigel system. Put it through. Admiral Nexhigh's image appeared, the Zephyrian commander's blue skin showing stress patterns. Admiral Zextar, we've encountered something unprecedented. A single human vessel approached our fleet of 60 ships and transmitted a message. What kind of message? They offered to accept our surrender. The bridge erupted in shocked exclamations from the crew. A single ship offering to accept the surrender of 60 Dominion vessels was beyond audacity. "I trust you," responded appropriately, Zextar said. "We opened fire with everything we had." "Sir, the human ship didn't even attempt evasive maneuvers. Their defensive systems simply absorbed our entire bombardment without taking damage." Zextar's throat sacs deflated completely. "Absorbed?" "They appeared to convert our weapon energy into power for their own systems. After we exhausted our primary batteries, they disabled all 60 of our ships with some kind of electromagnetic pulse that left us helpless but alive. Then what happened? They repeated their offer to accept our surrender and transmitted detailed specifications of their defensive and offensive capabilities. Sir, according to their data, the ship we attacked was what they classify as a light reconnaissance vessel. The bridge of the times, eternal conquest times, had become completely quiet, except for the soft humming of environmental systems. Every officer stared at their displays, trying to comprehend what they were hearing. Admiral necks high. "What were those specifications?" "Sir, their light reconnaissance vessel carries enough firepower to destroy a moon. Their defensive systems can absorb and redirect energy equivalent to a star's output for several minutes. And sir, they informed us that they have over 50,000 such vessels currently in service." Zextar felt something he hadn't experienced in his 2 centuries of military service. Genuine fear. Not fear of death in battle, but fear of an enemy so vastly superior that resistance was meaningless. "There's more, sir. They provided us with star charts showing human fleet positions." "Admiral, they have battle groups stationed in every major system within 500 light-years of their borders. We haven't detected them because their cloaking technology makes them invisible to our sensors." "How many battle groups?" "Over 1,200 confirmed positions, sir. And they emphasize that these are just their forward deployment forces." Zextar slumped in his command chair, his massive frame suddenly feeling very small. The Galactic Dominion had stumbled into a war with an enemy that could have crushed them at any time but had chosen instead to play with them. "Sir," Thys said softly, "if the humans have this much military power, why haven't they conquered the galaxy already?" The question hung in the air as Zextar contemplated the terrifying possibility that humanity had been holding back, not because they lacked the ability to destroy the Dominion, but because they were testing something. Perhaps they wanted to understand Dominion capabilities. Perhaps they were studying alien psychology. Or perhaps they were simply enjoying the practice. "Get me a direct communication channel to the human fleet commander in the Sol system," he ordered. "It appears we need to have a very different conversation than the one I had planned." The communication channel crackled to life aboard the Time's Eternal Conquest asterisk, and Admiral Zextar found himself staring at a human face for the first time. The being that appeared on his screen looked deceptively ordinary. Pale pink skin, 2 small eyes, and a mouth that seemed far too small for proper intimidation. Yet this creature represented a species that had just humiliated the greatest military force in the galaxy. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Solar Defense Force," the human said in perfectly translated galactic standard. "I understand you wish to speak with me." "Admiral Zex Tar." "Fleet Admiral Chen," Zextar began, struggling to maintain his dignity while his worldview crumbled around him. "I am contacting you to discuss terms." "Terms?" The human's eyebrows raised slightly. "What sort of terms did you have in mind?" "Surrender terms," Zextar admitted, the words tasting bitter. "The Galactic Dominion acknowledges that we may have underestimated human military capabilities." Admiral Chen leaned back in her chair, and Zextar caught a glimpse of the bridge behind her. What he saw made his blood run cold. The human command center was filled with holographic displays showing real-time tactical information from across hundreds of star systems. The level of coordination and information processing was beyond anything the Dominion possessed. "Admiral Zextar, I appreciate your directness, but I'm afraid there may be some misunderstanding about the situation." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "You seem to believe you've been fighting our military." The words hit Zextar like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" "The forces you've encountered over the past several months have been our exploration and contact division. They're primarily scientists, diplomats, and engineers whose job is to make peaceful contact with new species." Thys dropped her datapad again, the clatter echoing through the bridge. Sub-Commander Krill made a choking sound. Scientists? Zextar repeated weakly. That's correct. When you began attacking our contact missions, we had to provide them with defensive capabilities. The ships you've been fighting are equipped with basic protection systems and minimal offensive armament. Minimal offensive armament, Krill whispered, staring at the tactical displays that showed destroyed Dominion fleets. Admiral Chen, Zextar said carefully, if those were your scientists and diplomats, where is your actual military? The human smiled, and something in that expression made every officer on the bridge take an involuntary step backward. Would you like to see them? Before Zextar could respond, Admiral Chen made a gesture to someone off-screen. Suddenly, the sensor displays aboard the Times, Eternal Conquest Times, began screaming warnings. Ships were materializing out of empty space all around the Dominion flagship. This, report, Zextar barked. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures appearing within weapons range. 12, 20, 50. Sir, I've stopped counting. There are hundreds of ships surrounding us. They were cloaked? No, sir. These aren't cloaked ships. According to our sensors, they're materializing directly from faster-than-light travel. But that's impossible. No one can drop out of FTL with that kind of precision. Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers. Admiral Zextar, allow me to introduce you to the 3rd Terra Defense Fleet. They've been conducting training exercises in this sector. Training exercises? Zextar looked at his tactical display, which now showed his flagship surrounded by more firepower than the entire Dominion Grand Fleet. That's correct. We use mock battles against Dominion patrol groups to train our new crews. It helps them practice precision tactics without causing unnecessary casualties. The implications of her words hit the bridge crew like a wave. The devastating defeats that had shattered Dominion morale weren't even real battles from the human perspective. They were training exercises. How long have you been watching us? Zextar asked. Since before you knew we existed, Admiral Chen replied matter-of-factly. We've had observation posts in your territory for approximately 40 of your years. We wanted to understand your civilization before making contact. 40 years? Sub-Commander Krill gasped. But you only achieved spaceflight 18 months ago. Admiral Chen looked puzzled for a moment, then her expression cleared. Oh. You mean when we allowed you to detect our presence? Yes. We thought it was time to begin formal diplomatic relations. Unfortunately, your leadership chose to respond with military aggression. You allowed us to detect you? Of course. Our actual exploration vessels are completely undetectable by your sensor technology. The ships you discovered were specifically designed to register on your equipment, so we could initiate contact. Zextar felt reality continuing to shift around him. Everything the Dominion thought they knew about humanity was wrong. They weren't primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. They were an advanced species that had been observing and studying the galaxy for decades. Admiral Chen, what is the true extent of human military capability? The human paused, as if considering how much to reveal. Admiral, let me ask you a question. How many worlds does the Galactic Dominion control? 736 inhabited worlds across 4 galactic sectors. Impressive. Humanity currently maintains active populations on approximately 8,000 worlds across 47 sectors. The bridge fell silent. 8,000 worlds meant a population in the trillions. Industrial capability beyond imagination. Military resources that made the Dominion look like a small regional government. That's impossible, This whispered. Our exploration surveys would have detected human presence. Would they? Admiral Chen asked gently. Commander Thys, what percentage of potentially habitable worlds in the galaxy have you actually surveyed? Thys consulted her datapad with trembling hands. Approximately 3%. We've surveyed 97% and found them suitable for human habitation after appropriate terraforming. We've been expanding quietly for several centuries while your civilization focused on conquest rather than exploration. Several centuries? Zextar's voice cracked. How long has humanity been a spacefaring civilization? We achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 600 years ago. We spent the first 3 centuries exploring and establishing colonies. The next 2 centuries were devoted to technological development and peaceful expansion. Only recently have we begun making contact with other spacefaring species. The numbers were staggering. While the Dominion had spent 2,000 years conquering and subjugating nearby species, humanity had been quietly building an interstellar civilization that spanned nearly half the galaxy. Admiral Chen, Zextar said slowly, if humanity possesses this level of technological and military superiority, why haven't you conquered the galaxy? The human looked genuinely surprised by the question. Why would we want to do that? Because that's what advanced civilizations do. They expand their territory, control resources, establish dominance over lesser species. Admiral, that may be the Dominion way, but it's not the human way. We have no interest in controlling other species. We prefer cooperation and mutual benefit. But your military capabilities are purely defensive. We've learned that the galaxy can be a dangerous place, so we maintain the ability to protect ourselves and our allies. But we have no interest in conquest. Zextar struggled to understand. In his experience, power existed to be used. Species developed overwhelming military force in order to dominate their enemies. The idea that humans possessed the capability to conquer the galaxy but chose not to use it was incomprehensible. What do you want from us? He asked. Initially, we wanted to establish peaceful diplomatic and trade relations. Your species obviously possesses advanced technology in certain areas that could benefit both our civilizations. We hoped for mutual cooperation. And now? Admiral Chen's expression grew more serious. Now we have a problem. The Dominion has demonstrated aggressive expansionist tendencies and a willingness to attack peaceful contact missions. This presents a threat to our citizens and allies. What kind of threat response are you considering? 1. We've had extensive discussions about this issue. The most moderate proposal is to establish a buffer zone around Dominion territory and prohibit your expansion beyond current borders. And the less moderate proposals? Complete disarmament of Dominion military forces and supervised governance until your civilization demonstrates the ability to coexist peacefully with others. Zextar's throat sacs contracted. The humans were discussing casually dismantling a 2,000-year-old interstellar empire as if it were a minor administrative task. Admiral Chen, surely there's a middle ground that would satisfy both parties. Perhaps. What did you have in mind? The Dominion could agree to cease all military operations against human forces and establish formal diplomatic relations. That's a starting point. The human agreed. But we would need guarantees that the Dominion won't simply wait for an opportunity to resume hostilities. What kind of guarantees? Complete transparency regarding military deployments and operations. Joint patrols in disputed territories. Technology sharing agreements to ensure mutual benefit rather than military competition. Zextar considered the proposals. They essentially amounted to voluntary subordination to human oversight. But given what he'd learned about human capabilities, the alternatives were much worse. I don't have the authority to negotiate such agreements, he admitted. Of course not. These discussions would need to take place at the highest levels of Dominion leadership. But Admiral, I want you to understand something very important. What? This conversation represents humanity's preference for peaceful resolution. If the Dominion chooses to continue military aggression, our response will be very different. 4. What kind of response? Admiral Chen made another gesture. And suddenly the tactical displays aboard the Times, Eternal Conquest Times, showed something that made Zextar's blood freeze. The space around his flagship now contained thousands of human vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Dominion fleet. This is the 3rd Terra Defense Fleet, Admiral Chen explained calmly. They number approximately 4,000 ships and represent less than 2% of total human military capability. Zextar stared at the displays, showing more firepower than the Dominion had accumulated over 2 millennia of conquest. And this was just a training fleet, representing a tiny fraction of human strength. How is this possible? He whispered. 600 years of continuous technological development, Admiral. 600 years of building rather than destroying. 600 years of cooperation, rather than conquest. And if the Dominion refuses your terms, then we'll be forced to conclude that your civilization represents a permanent threat to galactic peace. Our response will be proportional to that threat. The meaning was clear. Humanity possessed the capability to end the galactic dominion whenever they chose. They were offering negotiation out of preference, not necessity. "I'll need time to contact the Grand Council," Zextar said. "Of course. But Admiral, understand that time is limited. Every day your forces continue attacking our people. The moderate voices in our government lose influence to those who favor more direct solutions. How long do we have? The Terra Senate will convene in 10 standard days to vote on our response to continued Dominion aggression. I strongly recommend that your Grand Council be prepared to discuss meaningful proposals by that time." The communication ended, leaving the Bridge of the Times, Eternal Conquest Times, in stunned silence. Slowly, the thousands of human ships began disappearing from their sensors as they returned to whatever pocket of space they had emerged from. "Sir," this said quietly. "What do we tell the Grand Council?" Zextar looked at the tactical displays, showing the recorded positions where 4,000 human warships had appeared instantly from faster-than-light travel. The level of coordination and technology required for such a maneuver was beyond Dominion comprehension. "We tell them the truth," he said finally. "We tell them that the Galactic Dominion has been playing war games with a species that could destroy us without noticeable effort. And we tell them that our only hope for survival is to convince them that we're worth keeping alive." The Times Eternal Conquest Times turned slowly toward Dominion space, carrying news that would reshape galactic civilization. The age of Dominion supremacy was over. The only question now was whether they would be wise enough to accept their new place in a human-dominated galaxy. The Grand Council chambers of the Galactic Dominion had never seen such chaos. Admiral Zextar stood at the central podium, watching as 700 representatives from conquered worlds shouted, argued, and demanded explanations that he couldn't provide. Above them all, the massive holographic displays showed tactical recordings that defied belief. "Order! Order!" Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth bellowed, his mechanical voice amplifiers drowning out the cacophony. The ancient Nexari leader had ruled the Dominion for over 3 centuries, and his authority was absolute. Slowly, the chamber fell silent. "Admiral Zextar," the Chancellor continued, his cybernetic eye focusing on the fleet commander. "You will explain to this council exactly how a species of primitive mammals has apparently made our entire military irrelevant." Zextar straightened his massive frame. "Supreme Chancellor, esteemed representatives, the situation is far worse than our initial reports suggested. The humans are not primitive. They have been observing our civilization for 40 years, while building an interstellar empire that spans 8,000 worlds." The chamber erupted again. Representative Korth of the Selenian Mining Guild jumped to his feet, his crystalline features flashing with indignation. 8,000 worlds? Impossible! Our scouts would have detected such expansion. "Representative Korth," Zextar replied wearily, "the humans have technology that makes their settlements invisible to our sensors. They have been expanding through sections of the galaxy that we believed were empty space." "Even if that's true," interrupted Councillor Yethra from the Spiral Arm territories, "numbers alone don't explain their military superiority. How can they defeat our fleets so easily?" Zextar activated the holographic display, showing the engagement records that had shattered his understanding of galactic warfare. "Councillors, what you're seeing are battles between our primary battle fleets and human training squadrons. Their actual military has never been deployed against us." The chamber fell silent as representatives watched Dominion cruisers being systematically destroyed by ships a fraction of their size. The precision was inhuman. Every human movement was perfectly calculated, every shot precisely targeted, every maneuver executed with machine-like efficiency. "How do they fight like this?" whispered Councillor Drex, a veteran military commander from the Rigel colonies. "It's as if they can predict our every move. According to Admiral Chen, they've been studying our tactical doctrines for decades," Zextar explained. "They know our capabilities better than we do. More importantly, their technology is approximately 6 centuries ahead of ours." Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth leaned forward, his mechanical limbs clicking against his throne. 6 centuries? Admiral? That would make them equivalent to the ancient builders. The mention of the ancient builders sent a chill through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy knew the legends of the mysterious civilization that had left incomprehensible artifacts throughout known space before vanishing millions of years ago. Their technology remained beyond understanding even after millennia of study. That's the assessment of our science division, Supreme Chancellor. Human technology shows characteristics consistent with ancient builder artifacts, but it's not identical. They appear to have developed their capabilities independently. What are their demands? Asked Counselor Nexhigh, representing the Outer Rim territories that had borne the brunt of human defensive actions. Complete cessation of military operations against their forces. Formal diplomatic relations. Technology sharing agreements. And oversight of Dominion military activities to prevent future aggression. The chamber exploded once more. Representatives shouted about sovereignty, dignity, and the proud history of Dominion independence. Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth let them rage for several minutes before restoring order. And if we refuse? He asked simply. They have scheduled a vote in their Senate 10 days from now. If no acceptable proposal is received by that time, they will vote on what they call direct solutions. What kind of direct solutions? Zextar activated another display, showing the sensor readings from his encounter with Admiral Chen. Thousands of human warships had materialized around his flagship in perfect formation, demonstrating technological capabilities that made Dominion science look primitive. They can appear anywhere in our territory without warning. Their weapons can destroy moons. Their defensive systems can absorb the energy output of a star. Supreme Chancellor. They possess the capability to sterilize every Dominion world simultaneously if they choose to do so. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Representative after representative stared at the tactical displays, trying to comprehend the scale of human military superiority. Surely they're bluffing, Counselor Yethra said weakly. No one possesses that level of destructive capability. I thought the same thing, Zextar admitted. But then I reviewed our intelligence archives. For the past 40 years, we've detected occasional anomalous energy readings throughout Dominion space. Readings that our scientists couldn't explain. What kind of readings? Gravitational distortions consistent with massive cloaked installations. Subspace communication signals using encryption we couldn't break. Sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Understanding dawned on several faces around the chamber. The humans hadn't just been observing from a distance. They had been maintaining a secret presence throughout Dominion territory for decades. They've been watching us, Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth said quietly. Studying us, learning our weaknesses. Yes, Supreme Chancellor. And based on their recent demonstration, they could have destroyed us at any time over the past 4 decades. The only reason we still exist is because they chose to let us live. Counselor Drex stood slowly, his scarred face showing the weight of his military experience. Admiral, in your professional opinion, what are our chances of successfully resisting human demands through military force? Zextar met the veteran commander's eyes. 0, Counselor. We are not fighting an enemy. We are being offered terms by a power that could erase us from existence without noticeable effort. Then we surrender, said Representative Korth bluntly. We negotiate the best terms possible and hope they're as benevolent as they claim to be. Surrender? Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth's voice carried dangerous undertones. The Galactic Dominion has never surrendered to anyone. With respect, Supreme Chancellor, Counselor Nexhigh interjected, the Galactic Dominion has never encountered an enemy this powerful. We built our empire by conquering species weaker than ourselves. These humans are so far beyond us that resistance is meaningless. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for defiant last stands and glorious defeat. Others pushed for immediate capitulation. A few suggested attempting to negotiate with other galactic powers for assistance against the human threat. Finally, Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth called for silence. Admiral Zextar, what is your recommendation? Zextar had spent days considering this question. Supreme Chancellor, I recommend we accept human terms and attempt to negotiate the best possible arrangement for our people. But I also recommend we prepare for the possibility that this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Supreme Chancellor, the humans claim they have no interest in conquest, but they obviously possess the capability to rule the galaxy. What happens when their leadership changes? What happens when their population grows beyond their current 8,000 worlds? What happens when they encounter a species that actually threatens them? The implications hung heavy in the chamber. Humanity might be benevolent now, but history suggested that absolute power eventually corrupted any species. The Dominion was facing not just military defeat, but potential eternal subjugation to a power that could never be challenged. However, Zextar continued, I also believe that cooperation with humanity offers opportunities that conquest never could. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their industrial capabilities are vast beyond our understanding. If we can prove ourselves valuable allies, rather than conquered subjects, we might benefit enormously from the relationship. Counselor Yethra raised her hand. What kind of benefits? Admiral Chen mentioned technology-sharing agreements. Imagine having access to human medical technology, manufacturing techniques, or scientific knowledge. Imagine what our civilization could become with 6 centuries of human development to learn from. The possibility began to shift the mood in the chamber. Representatives who had been thinking in terms of defeat and humiliation started considering potential advantages. Access to human technology could transform Dominion civilization. There's another factor to consider, added Counselor Drex. If humanity truly controls 8,000 worlds across 47 sectors, they must have encountered other spacefaring species. We're probably not the first civilization to go through this process. What are you suggesting? The Supreme Chancellor asked. I'm suggesting that human diplomatic protocols for dealing with aggressive species are probably well established. They've likely done this before. If we handle the situation correctly, we might end up better off than we were before we encountered them. The debate continued, but the direction was becoming clear. Faced with an enemy they couldn't fight and offered terms they could live with, the Dominion was moving toward acceptance. Finally, Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth called for a formal vote. All in favor of authorizing diplomatic negotiations with the human government based on the terms outlined by Admiral Chen? Hands rose throughout the chamber. Not unanimously, but by a clear majority. Motion carried. Admiral Zextar, you will lead our diplomatic mission. Your orders are to negotiate the best possible terms while ensuring the survival and autonomy of Dominion civilization. Yes, Supreme Chancellor. And Admiral? Make it clear to the humans that the Galactic Dominion accepts their terms not out of cowardice, but out of recognition that cooperation serves both our peoples better than conflict. 3 days later, Admiral Zextar found himself aboard a Dominion diplomatic vessel approaching the human fleet in the Sol system. This time, however, he wasn't alone. The ship carried a full diplomatic delegation, including Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth himself, science advisors, trade representatives, and military analysts. As they approached Earth's solar system, Zextar was struck by what he didn't see. The space around humanity's homeworld looked almost empty. A few small vessels moved between planets, and there were some orbital installations around the larger worlds, but nothing that suggested the massive military infrastructure he had expected. Where are their fleets? Asked Chancellor Vraxneth, studying the sensor displays. Unknown. Supreme Chancellor. Admiral Chen mentioned that their actual military forces are deployed throughout the galaxy. What we're seeing here appears to be purely civilian infrastructure. The diplomatic vessel was guided to a massive space station orbiting Earth. As they docked, Zextar realized that even this civilian installation was larger than the biggest Dominion military base. The technology level was obvious in every detail, from the seamless docking procedures to the artificial gravity systems that operated more smoothly than anything the Dominion possessed. Admiral Chen met them at the airlock, accompanied by several other humans wearing formal diplomatic attire. Despite knowing that these beings represented the most powerful military force in the galaxy, they looked remarkably ordinary. No intimidating weapons, no threatening postures, no displays of superiority. Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth, Admiral Chen said, inclining her head respectfully. Thank you for coming. I hope we can reach an understanding that benefits both our civilizations. Admiral Chen, the Chancellor replied through his translation system. The Galactic Dominion is prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. The negotiations took place in a comfortable conference room, with large windows showing Earth below. The planet looked green and blue and peaceful, with white clouds swirling across continents. It was hard to believe that this serene world was the center of an empire spanning thousands of star systems. Let me begin by clarifying our position, Admiral Chen said as they settled around the conference table. Humanity has no territorial ambitions in Dominion space. We don't want to conquer your worlds or rule your people. What we want is assurance that the Dominion will not threaten human citizens or our allies. What allies? Asked Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth. Admiral Chen gestured, and a holographic star map appeared above the table. It showed the galaxy with different regions marked in various colors. The Dominion's 700 worlds appeared as a small cluster of red dots. Humanity's 8,000 worlds were marked in blue and spread across nearly half the galaxy. But there were other colors as well. We have established peaceful relations with 43 other spacefaring civilizations, Admiral Chen explained. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, technology sharing arrangements. Together, these allied species control approximately 60% of inhabited galactic space. Zextar stared at the map in amazement. The Dominion had believed they were the dominant power in the galaxy. But they controlled less than 5% of inhabited space. The rest was divided between humanity and their allies. You've been building a galactic alliance, Chancellor Vraxneth observed. Yes. We've found that cooperation produces better results than conquest. Our allied species benefit from human technology and protection. In return, they contribute their own unique capabilities and perspectives. Where does the Dominion fit into this alliance structure? That depends on the Dominion's choice. We're prepared to offer full alliance membership, including access to human technology and protection from external threats. In return, we would expect the Dominion to abandon aggressive expansion and contribute to galactic stability. The terms were better than Zextar had dared hope. Full alliance membership would transform Dominion civilization overnight. Access to human technology would solve resource shortages, extend lifespans, and open possibilities that had been pure fantasy. What guarantees do you require from us? Chancellor Vraxneth asked. Complete transparency regarding military operations. Dominion forces would coordinate with Alliance peacekeeping efforts, rather than conducting independent conquests. Disputes with other species would be resolved through Alliance mediation, rather than warfare. And if we refuse these terms, Admiral Chen's expression remained pleasant, but something shifted in her voice. Then the Dominion would be classified as a non-aligned aggressive power. We would establish containment barriers around your territory and prohibit expansion beyond current borders. Trade would be limited, and any attacks against Alliance members would be met with immediate response. Containment barriers, automated defense stations around every Dominion world, monitoring all spacecraft movement. Any vessel leaving Dominion space without authorization would be disabled and returned. It would be a very lonely existence for your species. The message was clear. Accept Alliance membership and prosper, or face eternal isolation, enforced by overwhelming human technology. What about our internal governance? Asked one of the Dominion trade representatives. Would we maintain autonomy over our own worlds? Completely. Alliance membership only affects external relations. Each species governs their own territory according to their own customs and preferences. The negotiations continued for several days, working out details and addressing concerns. Slowly, a framework emerged that both sides could accept. The Dominion would join the Galactic Alliance as a junior member initially, with full membership status available after demonstrating commitment to peaceful cooperation. On the final day, Admiral Chen made an unexpected offer. Supreme Chancellor, would you like to see what Alliance membership could mean for your people? Before the Chancellor could respond, Admiral Chen activated a communication device. This is Admiral Chen to Science Division. Please transmit the medical package. Within minutes, a data package arrived containing complete specifications for human medical technology. treatments for diseases that had plagued Dominion species for millennia, life extension techniques that could double or triple natural lifespans, regenerative medicine that could repair injuries that had been considered permanent. This is just a sample, Admiral Chen explained as the Dominion scientists stared at the data in amazement. Alliance members have access to the complete human scientific database, plus research contributions from 43 other species. All of this would be available to us? Chancellor Vraxneth asked. Upon full Alliance membership, yes. We believe that knowledge should be shared for the benefit of all sentient life. The decision became inevitable. Faced with the choice between isolation and prosperity, between stagnation and unprecedented advancement, the Dominion chose cooperation. The signing ceremony took place aboard the space station with representatives from multiple Alliance species attending via hologram. As Supreme Chancellor Vraxneth affixed his seal to the Alliance Charter, Zextar realized he was witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. The age of Dominion conquest was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. Later, as the Dominion delegation prepared to return home, Admiral Chen approached Zextar privately. Admiral, I wanted to thank you for your role in these negotiations. Your willingness to accept reality and work toward peaceful solutions probably saved millions of lives. Admiral Chen, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Why did humanity choose cooperation over conquest? With your capabilities, you could have ruled the galaxy directly. Unquote. Admiral Chen smiled. Admiral, we learned long ago that ruling others is much more difficult than working with them. Conquered subjects become rebellious. Allies become friends. We'd rather have friends. And the military demonstrations? The overwhelming force displays? Sometimes you have to prove your strength before others will respect your restraint. The Dominion needed to understand that we were offering partnership from a position of strength, not weakness. As the Dominion ships departed Earth's solar system, Zextar reflected on the events that had brought them to this point. The Dominion had set out to conquer a primitive species and instead discovered they were the primitives. They had faced extinction and instead gained a chance at unprecedented prosperity. The humans had been right about one thing. Cooperation produced better results than conquest. Now the Dominion would have the opportunity to learn that lesson themselves. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful orbit around an ordinary yellow star, the quiet center of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known.